It was a classic Haynes moment yesterday. There was a fiery discussion about taxes and job creation. Take a listen.
In the beginning of the Clinton years, taxes were raised. 22 million jobs were created in the following 8 years. In the beginning of the Bush years, oh, wait a minute, let me finish. In the beginning of the Bush years, taxes were lowered. 1 million new jobs were created in the following 8 years. So this correlation between jobs and taxes is BS. It doesn't exist.
Meanwhile, back at headquarters, Larry Kudlow got in on the action and fired back. Here's what he had to say as the duel progressed.
What Mark and others who want to raise taxes, I guess, whatever, they forget is Bill Clinton lowered the capital gains tax. They forget that, and that was a huge spur to the technology.
And then there were tax cuts in 97.
Bill Clinton also expanded free trade, which was a tax cut as well. And the great supply-side tax cuts of John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan really do.
So his main argument was there's no correlation.
I think
there is a correlation.
Substantial correlation.
And you can catch Larry Kudlow holding court on The Call every day from 11 o'clock on CNBC. So what is the real deal? We've got some expert outside voices to weigh in. With us here, Keith Boykin, editor of The Daily Voice, and Jack Burkman, founder and president of Burkman and Associates.
Let me just step in before the guests begin. Did you notice the classic Kudlow moment where he attempts to deflect the debate from the merits to the opponent by saying what Mark and others who want to raise taxes. See, this is the classic bull that these people do.
Keith, I assume you're amongst those who'd like to raise taxes.
No, I'm among those people who believe that tax cuts don't necessarily create jobs. And the facts bear this out. Mark is exactly right. Not only were there 23 million jobs created in the Clinton administration with a top tax rate increase from 35 to 30.96%, but you also had only 3 million jobs. I think it's actually it's not 1 million, but 3 million jobs created in the Bush administration after 8 years, including 2 tax cuts. But it's not just those administrations. Look at the Reagan administration. Reagan cut taxes dramatically, and you know what happened? We created 16 million jobs over the course of 8 years. That's not as many as Bill Clinton created, but more importantly, after those tax cuts took place, unemployment soared to 11%. So if we had followed that same policy when Obama took office, unemployment might be much higher than it is right now.
Jack?
Oh, boy. Well, look, I think I enjoyed the drama yesterday, but I think I can refocus this, clear this up, and kind of solve this. You can't look at 2- and 3-year increments and draw conclusions about this either way. Since 1980, since 1960, the U.S. has had a series of really massive tax cuts. In that period, the economy has done gangbusters. In 1980, the Dow was 1,000. Today, it's 10,000. Since 1980, the United States has become a hugely wealthy place. Now, people will say, Keith's argument is, well, let's look at the last 10 years. We've actually lost a few jobs. How can you then say that the Bush tax cuts create jobs, Jack? Simple. In the last 10 or 12 years, the economy has been through the largest technological IT revolution in world history, bigger than even the first part of the 20th century, bigger than the Renaissance, bigger than all of it. We have become more efficient. We're outsourcing. We're doing what a market economy should do.
This is a lot of baloney. It doesn't get to the real issue. The issue is that tax cuts don't create jobs any more than tax hikes do. There's no evidence to. You haven't given one iota of evidence to. You've just gone on with some sort of rampage that doesn't even deal with the facts. How do you dispute what happened in the Clinton administration? Heck, go back to what happened when FDR was president.
Wait a minute, Jack. Keith, come on. Give Jack a chance here. Jack, I would point out to you that you are arguing my point. You're talking about efficiency, outsourcing, tech, all of which are much more important about job creation. The tax policy didn't matter. As long as the economy was doing certain things, jobs grew. And when it wasn't doing certain things, jobs didn't grow, and the tax policy wasn't a factor. The economy, it's the economy, stupid, to borrow the Clinton phrase.
Let me say this. I think you're right in part, but wrong, because you're looking at small increments of time. When you say the economy grows,
I'm looking at the last 18 years.
over long term, if you look at long-term periods, it is tax cuts that make the economy grow. It is tax cuts that make the economy grow.
Give me an example. I mean, Paul Krugman wrote an essay about this today in the New York Times. He talks exactly about this idea that Republicans have been saying this for ever since Reagan became president, that tax cuts actually make the economy grow or actually will create jobs. There's no evidence to it. You know what tax cuts definitely do? They blow a hole in the deficit. That's what happened when Reagan took office. The deficit almost tripled. When Bush came in office, the debt doubled. When Clinton came in office, he raised taxes. Let me tell you something. Clinton raised taxes to 39.6%, and you know what? We ran a surplus for 3 years
in the late 70s. If you go back to the late 70s, you have tax rates in the 70% range higher. You have massive taxes all over the place. You have a Dow that was about 950. You now have a Dow that's about 10,000.
The Dow is not the indicator for the success of the economy. You know that as well as I do. The Dow does better under Democratic presidents than it does under Republican presidents.
It's not just the Dow.
Give me a better indicator.
Keith, it's not just the Dow.
Keith, in all fairness, Keith, I don't think you're giving Jack sufficient opportunity to answer what you're saying. Go ahead, Jack.
I think it's not just the Dow, Keith. You can look since 1980, since 1960, at any possible economic indicator. You can look at GDP. You can look at wages. You can look at job creation. If you want to argue that since 1980, tax cuts, massive tax cuts, have had nothing to do with growing wealth and growing jobs in this country, you have a huge intellectual burden when you look at where the economy was in the 70s.
Let me explain to you something. This is documented fact, too. From the 1940s to 2010, where we are today, real economic growth was actually much higher from 1945 until about 1979, 1980
That's not true.
than it has been from 1980 to 2010.
What's your source,
and the point was that taxes were much higher. You know, the top tax rate during the 50s and the 60s until Kennedy cut taxes was 80 to 90%.
Keith, what's your source of those numbers?
Well, let me speak to that.
Well, first of all, you can look at the document from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Okay, let me speak to that. In 1945, let me speak to that. Let me show you how statistics.
Jack gets the last word. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to break it. Let me speak to that. Let me show you how statistics can be very misleading. Keith is astute. He's an astute Harvard law grad, but statistics can be misleading. In 1945, the U.S. economy was at a very low level coming out of the war and the Depression. The country was thoroughly broke. Anything coming off of 45 to 79 would show a huge percentage increase. That's a very misleading statistics. Again, you're looking at snapshots and drawing big conclusions.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I got to cut it off. One last question to Jack. According to my notes here, you're a former Fox analyst. Does that mean you saw the light? All right. Jack and Keith.
Mark, you're funny. I love
Jack and Keith. Gotta go. See you later.
That sorted that out then.